We thank you for staying with us on the Ultimate News and Current Affairs program on television this morning on ITV. Again, we hope you had a great weekend, and it's a brand new week. And it's quite interesting how the week can be, particularly on a Monday. And have you noticed in recent times, I don't know, maybe it's the spirit of the Amber Months, the Christmas rush and all of that. As early as 6 a.m. in the morning, the roads are already crowded. And you're just wondering, all these vehicles, where have they been all along? And it's always very challenging when on the Monday morning you wake up and you have a flat tire. I mean, that means you've got to contend with that. And that could just cascade into other things that you have to do for the rest of the day, like I had experienced this morning. And if you're not able to manage such a situation, it could really, put a sour taste in your mouth, leave a sour taste in your mouth, because it's a sequence of events and activities, one leading to another. If you don't get it right with the first one, particularly when there's a major challenge, that could affect the rest of your day. Anyway, that's just on the lighter side. Welcome on board the show. Again, TMI Monday morning with yours sincerely. My colleague Wilson Omasho had brief a little while I was battling on the road with my flat tire and getting to navigate my way through with the huge traffic that is upon us at this point in time. But that's okay. That's okay. It means that you just have to be composed and take every decision that you make seriously, and be careful and be cautious, and that way you will get to your destination early enough and make some very great impact. Now, I'm beginning for some time. I've always seen that, on this Benin Ugbo Lagos Expressway, there's usually a huge traffic by inner oil every morning. And then I'm like, what's going on? Why this traffic that will be running all the way close to the furniture company that we have on this other side? And well, that's the way it is. If people will conduct themselves well on the road, some of those traffic, they are really, really avoidable. Well, we're glad now that the Edo State Traffic Management Agency officials, they are back on the road now, helping to douse the tension and ensure that the seeming nonchalance that some of our drivers display on the road, recklessness that they display on the road, will actually be dealt with by way of appropriate action and sanctions where necessary. Okay, within the week, one issue that has been a major talking point, because it took the attention of over 70 million people across the world who were glued to their TV sets following proceedings in the U.S. presidential election. And just over the weekend, Joe Biden emerged the president-elect of the United States of America. The incumbent has refused to accept defeat, and he's gone to court to contest the outcome of the election. But while that is ongoing, reactions have started to trail the outcome of the election. Congratulatory messages have been pouring in for President-elect Joe Biden, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Beautiful woman, a stunning woman. So how all of this will shape up is only time will tell. I've got with me in the studio Christopher Ojekere, is the Programs Officer, Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change. Chris, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Sonny. Good to be here.
And we have with us as well Professor Tony Ijewere from Novena University, a professor of business administration and also a public affairs analyst. Prof, we thank you for coming on the program.
It's a great pleasure to be here, and well, it's unfortunate you went through the hassle of this morning. It's part of life.
Thank you. And just to also let you know that we have a couple of interviews coming up on the show, particularly for those who are partnering with us, supporting us for some of the events that we'll be hosting in the later part of the year, specifically in the month of December. Orange Woods is in-house. We'll be talking with them in a moment from now. Okay, let's get our conversations on. First, one thing that attracted the attention of everyone is the seeming long time the election went through before the results came out. We used to believe, I still hold that belief anyway, that because it's US, The election took place on Tuesday. By Wednesday, the result will be out. But that didn't happen. Were you concerned about that? Let me begin with you, Chris, on your thoughts on the election.
I noted it just like many other persons did. But I also didn't close my eyes to certain factors that could have resulted in that. It is the first time we are doing a COVID-19 election, so to speak, in the United States of America. And we know how America has been affected by COVID-19. In fact, in very recent times, there was a new resurge of an outbreak. Now, that is why you had to have a lot of mail votes coming in, you know, different from the physical votes that were being cast by people. I expected that had an impact on the result in terms of collation. As I speak to you now, I understand that results are still being counted in some states, you know, not to talk of beginning validation and certification of the results. They are still being counted in Georgia and a few other states. Georgia itself is going to be, you know, recounted. Judge Bush is calling for recounting in a few other states, I think North Carolina or something, like Carolina or something. So the COVID, you know, exigencies impacted on the result. I'm sorry, on the time frame. 5 days actually.
Okay.
And the time it will take for you to bring in the mail, you know, votes. I understand that just as it was looking like they've concluded elections, they now have to take votes from the military and they have to take votes from people in the diasporas. And all of that, you know, affected it. Now, if you also put into consideration that you are having the highest number of votes in world history for any presidential candidate, 74 million votes attributed to Biden as at the moment is the highest any presidential candidate have ever scored in the world. And following closely that is Trump's own 17-point-something million votes. So if you have this huge number of people showing this, you know, eager interest in the election, then you are going to have to, you will have to need to give them space, you know, so there was no rush about it at all. Then remember also that the person Trump, it's a very controversial person and a very, what you may refer to as a very imperious character. He is not going to allow an election that looks like something that is hush to just go. Even with all the painstaking effort, there are still a lot of issues on this election, at least from his own point of view. So the process needed to make things transparent, make things very clear, so that, you know, there will be no fallout from it.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's it.
Yes, Prof.
In addition to that, I think there's a political dimension to it. That is to say that the black population have not been too happy with Trump in view of certain incidents that occur, especially the black guy that was killed by his attitude to the black guy that was killed by the police. And we also understand that he doesn't like the black press people. You know, he prefers to be dealing with white press people. And each time he had discussion with the blacks who are press men and women, he tends to be arrogant and all that. In fact, insultive. And so it's like, hey, this is an opportunity to deal with this man. So, and not just the blacks, every other race, you know, is not being very, doesn't have cordial relationship with them. So I think they must have mobilized, seriously, mobilized the blacks, mobilized the Hispanic and other ethnic nationalities there to ensure that it doesn't get a second term. I think that also accounted for the huge number of votes that we are seeing. And Joe Biden is also seen as somebody who is more friendly with the American, African, and other ethnic nationality. So they must have also mobilized to make sure that they remove this man called Trump, because they feel it doesn't, their interests will not be fulfilled under his administration in view of the bad precedents he has set for the 4 years he has been in office.
Okay, Chris,
Yeah.
It's really not in line with some of the set patterns in the U.S. history
Yes.
that an incumbent wouldn't get a second term.
Yes.
So what, in your opinion, are the misgivings towards Donald Trump that has brought him where he is now? Ordinarily, this probably would have been an easy ride for him as an incumbent, as it were.
Well, Trump has a parallel in our politics, especially Edo politics. I don't want to name names. He has a parallel of a personality in Edo politics. There are people who are almost an equal mixture of here and there, good and bad. Trump represents that. As an individual, he's brusque and dictatorial and blunt to a fault. Is seen as arrogant and, a racist. He might not be more racist than any average American or any average, white skin, but he is imperious and impetuous. And because of that, he is very, a boisterous person would always come out and expose himself too glaringly for even the blind to see, as it were. So his character as a person, which may not be the total summation of the values he stands for and the values he actually wants to project. His methods his madness didn't have methods to it.
Okay.
His madness was bare. So that had pitched him against conservative whites, against the coloreds, as he has said, and against other nationalities that make up America. You find that Joe Biden's catch was reclaiming the soul of America. Trump forgot the history of America. Joe Biden himself, who is now president, has Irish origins. He hasn't forgotten that. Kamala Harris, who is now vice president, has Indian origins. So in Trump's own definition of America, America has not won this election because you can trace these people back, and that's the soul of America Joe Biden was referring to. That America provided home to people of different tastes, nationalities, color, ideologies, and try and create a country where you web all of these together to form a national entity of development called America. America is more of a vision than, what he was trying to represent. Now, he was for the so-called white supremacist minority. As he has seen now that they are in the minority. He represented the interests of the white supremacists and therefore lost all these other people who themselves make up America, whose grandparents make up America, which is the American soul Joe Biden was referring to. So he lost that. And when you have lost that, you have lost the votes of America. Because almost everybody, I just cited the example of the president-elect now and the vice president, can trace their roots. His own predecessor was African from Kenya, Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And Barack Obama felt, personally insulted by a lot of those racist comments and a lot of those insinuations he makes every time he's talking. They just fall off him. So there was no way he was going to win, and America would still remain in its definition, America. America are always looking for somebody who understands the concept. That's what they call the American vision of America. And they want somebody who represents that, not just in America, but to the world. Well, if you listen to Biden's speech, he said, it is time to heal the nation. It is time that we should talk to each other again. This demonization of Americans must stop right here and now. Now, he knew. I mean, remember, he's been senator for 35 years. He was vice president for, he was senator for, I think, 27 years. He was vice president for 8 years. It's been 40 years in the American public service. From 1973, he started. So now he understands the concept. He understands America. He understands the politics. He knew the sentiment. Trump was a businessman. He came from the business world. That mercantilist character that he has, and his what do you call it, merchandising character that he has, where you bully your way through in the boardroom. He had that kind of mentality. He didn't understand the politics of America. And because he had a few things going for him, he thought that is what America represented, America wanted. So Biden just came in at the right time, and that upset him.
All right, Prof. Donald Trump has refused to accept defeat. He's already in court, and following some decisions by such courts, some recountings are taking place. People are talking about some allegations of fraud in the election proper, and all of these are coming forth. Do you see all of these changing what already has been established as a result of the outcome of the election?
It's unfortunate that a country the world look up to as the father of democracy, you know, a president like Trump is trying to bastardize what the whole world believes that America represents when it comes to democracy. He has every right to contest whatever shortfall of the election exercise. But for him to say that he's not leaving office, you know, as supposed father of democracy of the world, you know, he has reduced, you know, America to third world nation, you know, because like my co-discussant said, you know, Joe Biden capitalized on the fact that, hey, America have to really represent what people should believe America is, you know, because all the ethnic nationalities, they form a big bulk of the voting population. And like he said in his acceptance speech, basically he made a very strong point that, hey, look, folks, to use his word, he said, look, election is over. And he said Americans must work as Americans, that he wants to see, you know, he's been in office, he's seeing it as working for the interests of America, that all whatever political jargons, political differences he had with, you know, Trump, that all those will be over, and that everybody should work together for the interests of America. You know, he never said, oh, you know, winner takes all, that he's the president-elect, and therefore every other person that doesn't belong to the Democratic Party as against the Republican is, you know, we have no business with him. He's seeing the whole idea as America, and is working towards that. So it's very unfortunate that you know, Trump is taking that position, you know, and we are not too surprised. Not surprised in the fact that he's autocratic in his ways of looking at things. He's not a democratic person. I don't know, maybe because of the flavor of being a Republican. You know, Republican goes, you know, showed that American power, you know, you must always show that we're the police of the world and all that and all that. And maybe his business background, where you just have to get things going, and I never took cognizance of the political variables in the political space of America. And Joe Biden simply just took advantage of it. And in view of the popularity, we are talking about 74 million votes here. In view of Joe Biden's popularity, I don't, even if he heads to the court, I don't think he's going anywhere, because it's so obvious and clear that the man the Americans actually want is Joe Biden, and it stands.
Okay, if you say even if he heads to court, there's no chance, that will be subjective. So we probably will leave that for the courts to decide. But let me just bring you up to speed there, Christopher. There are concerns about some activities as it relates to the election, particularly with the ballots. I saw a report online that talked about 12 states, Alabama, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Washington, Virginia, and Delaware, Illinois, Colorado, Texas, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Kentucky, where some of these alleged fraudulent activities took place. This has brought about a recounting. How do you see this in the whole gamut of activity as far as the election is concerned?
I think it's in their system that if a particular candidate thinks that he has reasons for a recount of a particular ballot cast in a particular state, he has the opportunity and that window to do so. Okay. And Donald Trump is exploiting that. So that if you think that it was too close to call, and let me tell you the reason. The reason is because there are states that are traditionally Republican, and there are states that are traditionally Democrat. Now, part of the winning of Joe Biden was predicated on the fact that he could swing some of those Republican states to Democratic states. Now, Donald Trump obviously had so much confidence that his Republican states were going to stay with him. Michigan, for instance, where Wisconsin, for instance, and then Pennsylvania, for instance. Yeah. So, yes, and Georgia.
Yeah.
Now, when he saw that Biden was swinging the states, he wants to know, he wants to be sure that, because according to official sources and institutional sources, they say his accusations are without any form of
proof.
And they're also without any form of,
evidence
that will lead to suspicion. But he has the right within the Constitution to say that he wants recount, and the recount will be done in those states. So I think that's very normal. There's no problem about that. The point to be made is this. The election and its processes usually determine the outcome. And that's what he should be looking at. When he started to lose his election, even Republican senators like Sanders and the others were beginning to say that. This man has just gone through the threshold of 270 votes that he needs in the Electoral College. In fact, I think he's in about 290-something votes now in the Electoral College, Joe Biden. If you know the way the Electoral College works, then I don't understand what Trump is trying to prove, because the people that make up the Electoral College are from those states where he wants the ballot recounted.
Okay.
It is the elective representative from those states that constitute the 583 Electoral College people. And they are required to vote according to those who won in their states. And before they can admit that you won in their state, the election would have been credible and transparent to them.
Okay.
Because they are the final arbiter. So they don't joke with such things. So I don't know how he intends to overturn that. I think it's just his personal doubts and his personal, hubris that is in question. He couldn't believe that those people who he assumed shared the same ideology of supremacist attitude with him, which he thought the Republican represented and those states represented, that they could swing to the left and go to the Democrats. So I think that's why he's asking that there should be a recount of those ballots. And
besides, he's also blaming this May thing. May vote.
May vote, yeah.
He said he's been against it. He has been talking negatively about it, that they should not allow it to happen, But some of us here as a statement of a thinking man who thought the cubancy factor will work, and all those states that are traditionally Republican states that is going to get them. And, just all of a sudden discovered that things are not in his favor. So he's hammering on those May votes that came in. Because at a point in some of those Republican states where he was leading, by the time the May votes came in, he was overthrown.
Exactly.
So he's so bitter about the May vote, as if the May vote thing is illegal. But it's part of what the Constitution has accepted. And so I just think he should relax, and like our former president said, President Jonathan, that he should just accept defeat, so that democracy can continue, that you don't expect that you will win all the time. I think that's a good advice. Even Obasanjo said similar thing, that you should try and accept and defeat. And you see, the beauty of this thing, maybe we'll discuss it later, but the beauty of this thing is that his policies, based on his own background and the background of the Vice Harris, the vice president, I think is going to be, when you talk about foreign policy, I think Africans are going to enjoy this government as compared to Trump's government. You remember, he stopped Nigeria from this American lottery. He stopped a lot of things that blacks are enjoying, from other countries and all that. And his immigration policy did not also favor a lot of African American, and people from other countries, diaspora. So I think all this has contributed to his defeat. But he's finding it difficult to believe that somebody who is sarcastic, who is proud, who thinks yes, anything I say must work. See his attitude to coronavirus. I think is also part of the problem that caused his defeat. He took it for granted. He was not very draconian about it. He took everything for granted, and American lost, thousands of people. And, the Americans did not like that. They believed that he did not do much as compared to even other countries that are not as medically advanced as America. So that also has some minuses from his votes.
Fantastic. Someone have said, well, if President Trump refuses to leave office on account of his disposition towards the outcome of the election, that the office will simply leave him. I need you to say something in that direction.
He's speaking from historical resources.
Okay.
Because it has happened before. The second president of America, I think Adam Johnson or somebody, refused to leave office, refused to concede defeat to Thomas Jefferson, and refused to quit the White House, as was the tradition. He was actually the first person that was staying in the new official residence of the White House.
Okay.
Now, America is built on institutions. It is one thing that makes America great. And Americans are trained from birth to respect those institutions and to see those institutions as superior to the individuals. Condoleezza Rice, when he came to Nigeria when we had issues, you remember he came with her president, George Bush, to Nigeria, and somebody asked her a question relating to this. And she said, well, I don't mind saying this. I said it to the president before, and I hope the president will not mind me saying it, that she has always said and believes that the office is greater than the occupier of the office. I mean, she was with her president, George Bush. And George Bush agreed with her, concurred with her. So America are cast in that mentality that the institution is greater than the individual. So if the individual says that he's not going to obey the institution will simply move. In the case I was referring to, the Secret Service, and you can see the number of Secret Service companies that came with Joe Biden when he gave his speech. The Secret Service are the first to start it. They move away. As I speak to you now, from that Saturday when it was announced, the Secret Service will begin to share information between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. I mean, top secret information. And that's why you see Joe Biden acting like he's president already. Now, White House staff are going to begin to take instructions from Biden. The American CIA, FBI, and all of that will begin to take instructions from Biden. And then they share, because he's still sitting there as the incumbent. They'll be sharing information.
Okay.
And once it gets to January 20, and he's sworn in, Joe Biden is sworn in, they'll just walk away from him and bid him goodbye. Then the staff, the White House staff, will remove his things from the White House. So it is the institution. That's the beauty of it. That people know that the institution is greater than the individual, and they obey the institution. They respect the institution. They defend the institution. When we are saying America, we are very quick to say no democracy is perfect. Even America, that is the father of democracy, we're expecting this. We look for one little flaw, and we are happy on that. We are forgetting that they have structured foundation which they have laid. Okay. Why don't we begin to say American institutions will not respect a man who thinks that he's greater than the institutions, and laws that are draconian, American institutions will not respect. We have had cases where Supreme Court judges will stand up to the president, and the president will make an order, and the judge will say that order is unconstitutional and it's illegal. So now, why don't we begin to imitate institutions like this and say, okay, let's begin to talk about institutions in Nigeria where you will have institutions greater than the occupiers of those offices. That is what makes the American democracy beautiful. It is not the fact that you cannot have an individual like Donald Trump who is going to behave in this, erratic manner and, in a preposterous manner. You're always going to have individuals. But how is the institution taking care of those individuals? That is the point. Joe Biden didn't go into his closet and shrink and say, I'm waiting for the big man who can command the army. The National Guard will soon stop listening to him. Who can command the National Guard to come and arrest me, so let me hide here and let me use wisdom or run away from the shores as they did. It's because he trusts that the institution will stand with the electorate's votes. It will stand with the law of America. And that is why he's acting the way he's acting, with the confidence. In fact, Barack Obama said Joe Biden already has the courage of a president. He's already acting like one. That's part of it. Yes, that's contained in his congratulatory message. He was his vice president.
Yeah, for 8 years.
From the congratulatory message, you could tell he had a lot of respect for him when he was his vice president.
Okay.
Yes.
I've seen a whole lot of African Americans celebrating Joe Biden's victory. What do you make of this?
Well, it's a positive development. Positive development in the sense that when he was vice president, his policies were African friendly with Barack Obama. And if you look at the background of the two candidates, there are people who came from different ethnic nationality. And like the Vice President Harris, where his parents came from Jamaica and India. And the personality-wise, we've heard that Joe Biden is that type that has lion's heart. Is the type that cares about people's feeling. Is the type that he has a character of trying to solve people's problem, and it doesn't, it's not a racist based on what we have read concerning his character and profile. And going by the Vice President Harris, which he also chose as his vice president, it shows, it's not this type of person that's a racist. He believes in what an individual can do. And that's why I chose the first black lady to be vice president of America. And so, in view of that, I think Africans are going to have more confidence in his administration, believing that I'm sure some of those draconian policies Trump has put up against the interests of Africans, we suspect and believe, in view of his background and antecedents, that he's going to overturn some of those policies in favor of African Americans and other ethnic nationalities, because he has sympathy for minority and those he believes that the American draconian Republican policy, which was demonstrated by Trump, is not the best. So I think it's a plus. It's going to introduce a lot of business relationship between America and other countries. Even in the area of AIDS, it's going to also it's going to provide more opportunity for African countries to develop.
Okay.
And that in itself is a positive development of seeing him as the president-elect as compared to the administration of Donald Trump.
Okay, Chris, there's been some talks around the corner that, well, part of the challenges for Donald Trump, President Trump, was that he had too many issues to confront with, which eventually culminated in the outcome of the election. I saw a post where someone listed all the encounters or the structures, institutions that Trump had to fight against. For example, you have Trump versus New World Order, Trump versus vaccine producers, Trump versus Bill Gates Foundation, Trump versus homosexuals, lesbian, gay, Trump versus immunization promoters in Africa, Trump versus terrorists, beneficiaries, the warmongers, Trump versus China. I mean, the outbreak of the COVID-19 Trump was very hard on China. As a matter of fact, he called it a Chinese virus because it came from China. But nobody has really leveraged on that to expatiate or explore how that virus came, and then appropriate sanctions taken against who did what. That seems to have been swept under the carpet. Then you also have Trump versus mainstream media. We saw instances where the mainstream media, the Western media, some of them will come out openly, even as anchors and whatever you, to throw jabs at President Donald Trump, as it were. And then you also have Trump versus fake news media, Trump versus bad leadership promoters in Africa, Trump versus anti-religions. We can just go on and on and on. How do you relate what has happened to these forces and different dimensions of it against him?
The analysis that would arise from that is a bit deep and well ahead of my scope. But I'm going to give you my opinion about some of these things. When I started, I said Trump was a mixture of here and there, the good and the bad. In the height of the presidency of America, Trump is privileged to see closely, more closely than you can see, into some of these things that you have listed and their relationship to America and the rest of the world. Now, the world has always run in two planes. You have what people now refer to as the deep state. That is the unseen hand that want to manipulate the world to certain interests. Some people think that there are certain things we should allow like that if we want to maintain world stability. Now, others think that they should be investigated. Experience has shown to political researchers and administrators that a huge majority of the people who live in the world don't know what's going on in the world. They don't know the deep things people do subterraneously. Now, the problem Trump had was that if he had privy access to these things, information, his attitude did not help to communicate to the world that did not understand what he was trying to fight. For instance, I am personally interested in the fact that Trump's presidency put a great check on ISIS, and did put a great check on ISIS Middle East, and put pressure on ISIS West Africa, ISWA, which has pit him against the Islamic world where terrorism breeds. And that is why you find that people from northern Nigeria were jubilating when they heard that he lost the election. Not necessarily because this policy of Joe Biden is going to favor Nigeria, economic development, but because the stranglehold firm hand against terrorism that festers in that region has been, the man who represents it, who epitomizes it, has been eased out of the way. These are some of the contradictions. It is left to see how Biden's policy for Africa is going to help deal with that menacing scourge, because that's our greatest problem right now. The infiltration of terrorists from the northern Africa, down into Africa, sponsored by ISIS, called, and the Nigerian, the African counterpart called ISWA. How the Biden's presidency is going to deal with that? Because right now, he's coming in from a conformist, sentiment and conformist association. That's what the whole world operates on. Now, China's aggressiveness as it's in quotes, unsubstantiated allegation, in trying to topple Western economy. Trump thought he needed a hard hand, but was he playing the right cards? It is also going to be interesting to see how Biden's presidency is going to deal with that. Whether he's going to be able to go on with his cool, calm, collected policies and be able to offset such aggressions is yet to be seen. So I believe actually that some of those things listed there, some are just made up as a result of analysis of individuals who have done researches, and they say Biden is being brought in so that they can continue a new world order and all of that. And I don't believe in all those kind of fables. But I do know that in the world, there are always people who want to control the world. There are multinational companies that want to control the economy of the world. There are, people that you may refer to and include them in the deep state that want to control the world. How you deal with that? The Democrats believe that you use diplomacy. The best person who have actually handled it, in my opinion, has been Bill Clinton, who has been able to really deal with these issues. It was Bill Clinton who warned Barack Obama about how dangerous Osama bin Laden is, and discovered actually Osama bin Laden's methods. So though it was Obama who took him out, but he has a lot to thank Bill Clinton for. Now, Bill Clinton, it was also who developed AGOA, a real positive African development initiative. Biden was vice president to Obama, who shunned Nigeria in his 8 years. I don't know how much he can detach himself from Obama, or whether Obama is the hand behind the scene that is unseen. All of these will play out, because we have to now start thinking of what does the Biden presidency mean to Nigeria. Are we going to have a radical change in policies? I agree perfectly with Prof that all those ephemeral things, like, allowing immigration, relaxing immigration. In fact, he has already come to say, first of all, he's going to sign back to the Paris Agreement, climate change. He has also said that he's going to reverse a lot of the policies of Prof. And I'm sure immigration is going to, although he hasn't mentioned immigration particularly, but he has to review immigration and all of that, so that he will win America back to the heart of those who want to be friends of America. But then he's still going to have to confront these problems I'm referring to, because the menace right now in the northeast, in Nigeria's northern part of the country, if you saw the lengthy congratulatory messages and almost the lecture that Buhari sent to him as a congratulatory message on how he thinks he should run the place. So I think my question is, what is Biden's, what's Nigerians, what do we start to gain apart from those
from Biden's presidency,
which they have always given to us?
Yes.
No, we don't want AIDS anymore. We don't want so-called AIDS. They're not helping Africa. We are thinking of substantial policies on Africa that would make us to begin to improve our trade relations, and that will begin to put respect on our raw materials exportation. The entire African's raw material that are exported to Europe. The other day, a man did the calculation, and the trade volume of the world, Africa contributes only 0.01%. That's what we gain. So we want these kind of things addressed, not just those pats on the back and all that. As I said earlier, all white men are at heart racist. It just depends on the diplomatic way you go about it, or the brusque way that you go about it. So I think that Trump had those things to contend, but he didn't have the tact. He didn't have the diplomacy. And he cannot also exonerate himself from what he's being accused of. There are a lot of comments that fell offhand him that shows you that he's racist. In fact, he actually hates the blacks. He has denied it several times, but he's done a lot of things and said a lot of things off cue that shows. For instance, the comment he made that really pitched the black against him was when he said, if he loses the election, this man, 78 years, is senile. He's just going to hand this thing over to that black woman. Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
You get the point?
Yeah.
So, he makes statements like that shows that he's a more, extroverted racist, so to speak, than the others. So I think he had those issues, but he didn't have the tact. That's why I say he has a parallel here. I know a man who is a tragic hero like him.
Fantastic. If you just join us, it's TMI Monday, doing some retrospection on the U.S. presidential election, which of course more or less came to a close on Saturday with the announcement of Joe Biden as president-elect and Kamala Harris as vice president-elect. We just wait to see how the contestations in court will manifest ultimately, and see how all of that pans out to bring the election to a logical conclusion. Well, for many people, particularly many people in Nigeria, they just believe that the election will go on, and then by Wednesday, Thursday, the election result will be announced, and then a winner emerges, but that didn't happen. It took a couple of days. But again, like we see in Nigeria, one of the candidates is going to court to contest, or is already in court to contest the election. And someone said, well, that he believes that there is he believes that some of the genes in President Trump, they are Nigerian genes, because this is what we see in politics, except for the last Edo State governorship election. Yes, the Prof.
Well, it's very funny and at the same time very interesting. It's unfortunate that Trump doesn't want to accept and defeat, where you can say the court has not interpreted the election, but it is very glaring that what is his name now? Joe
Biden,
was very hot in this election. He was hot, and he was always at front. He was always leading in most of these states. And at the end of the day, he was able to get, as at last count, 284 college vote as against 214 for Trump. I mean, the evidence is so clear. That is why initially I made the statement that Trump is just going to waste his time. You know, institutions like my friend said, you know, are already in place, and that is what America stands for. You must respect the institutions that are already in place. So it's not just Trump going to court that is the issue. The issue is that the institution is supreme, you know, to whatever interest he has. Yeah. And if the institutions, the Supreme Court and the rest of them says, hey, the figures that has been released that came out from this election are true, are genuine, even when a recount is done, then Trump is going nowhere. You know, so if we have to liken it to the Nigerian situation, it's very funny that some Nigerians are saying, hey, you see, it's not just only Nigerians that had issue with election malpractice, election rigging, and all that and all that. But it has also been proved that Trump was only speculating. He cannot really, doesn't have raw facts to prove that the May votes were rigged. You know, he was only angry that the May vote can be fraudulent. He's not too sure if it's going to, the May vote is going, you know, people will not take undue advantage of it to rig. For example, there were some incidents they cited that there were people who were already dead, and somehow their May votes still came in, you know, and so he felt, but what is the percentage of such people?
Yeah, but such things should be investigated. I heard. It's been done already. Yeah.
But we are talking about 4 million plus vote difference. Yeah. You know, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for him to be able to, you know, garnish enough to meet up with the 4 million plus vote difference. You know, so it's very interesting. But what makes it different from that of Nigerian situation is that our National Electoral Commission, have they done a perfect job? That is the issue. Have they learned any lesson from what has happened in the American election, that, hey, you don't just, you must conduct election that is free, fair, and credible, using the resources available and using the right institutions to make sure that the elections are credible, so that whatever is the outcome of the election will be you know, welcome and received as being genuine. What about our judiciary system? Have they also learned anything? That they must ensure that once election is done, the right candidate, you know, should be sworn in, and that the court, the people, the electorate should decide who wins election in Nigeria, and not the court deciding who wins election in Nigeria. That is why one of the governors is called Supreme Court governor. I don't want to mention him now, but it's clear. So these are the issues. I think our institutions should stand up and learn a lot from what has happened in America. And Trump not being too satisfied with what has happened does not mean that American democracy is falling by the wayside. It's not at all. The institutions are strong, and we still respect American democracy.
All right, Chris,
Yeah.
let's take a final word from you on the outcome of the election and going forward in terms of your expectation, because in monitoring this election, you find the issues of division in the country coming up so frequently, and that has been part of the speech by Joe Biden, that, I mean, he's out to unite the country, heal the wounds, and then reintegrate the country. I'd like to get your perspective on those.
Your speech, your first speech, when you are made president of America, more or less defines your tenureship, because it gives the generality of people the impression about your thinking process and about your vision for America.
Okay.
And Joe Biden got it right, as any president has ever done. He understood that the greatest challenge America had right now is this cleavages and division on color lines and on supremacist lines and all of that. And he knew that that was driving America out from world influence and making America the butt of joke in the world. So his first speech captured that. As I said earlier, he said, we'll begin to talk to each other again. This demonization of Americans must stop here and now. And then he made quite, something out of the fact that Kamala, Harris was the first female colored vice president. And Harris herself said, I may be the first woman vice president, but I'm not going to be the last. So gender equality and gender balance was represented there. Now, Joe Biden said he has come to heal America. That was the issue of the Trump's presidency. The problem the world has with America, and America has with the world, is the problem of the character of Trump. And like a bull in a china shop, how he breaks everything where he goes. So Harris knew that it was beginning to make America a ridiculous nation. Biden knew that, and so Biden decided that he was going to let America know that it wasn't going to go that way. He said he wants to work with every American and give Americans the chance to develop America. He wants to bring, in fact, he told Trump's supporters, he said, I know how you feel now. I've lost a couple of elections myself, but give me a chance. You understand that? So it was the proper thing to do, and he did it well. America needs to get its acts together and put its house in order before they can begin to talk about world dominance. He understood that. He's going back to the Paris Agreement to join the rest of the world, as he put it, to fight climate change. So by that statement, it's a masterstroke, diplomatic masterstroke. He has reintegrated himself back to the world. And when they come back to the world, they take their dominant position in the world. So while they are agreeing with the world, they're actually agreeing with the world to give them their first position. Now, the Paris Agreement, Americans' contribution to it. So that fund is coming back. Of course, he's going to do something about the UNO and all of that. Trump, actually, according to your researcher, has so many things to fight, but 90% of those things, he just created those fights for himself. So it was right that Joe Biden did that, and it was right that he brought a colored woman to represent that demonized, so to speak, majority, actually, of Americans, to say, look, this is what America stands for. We are all one in the American dream, and that's why Kamala Harris is here. She got congratulated from her village in India, where they were celebrating. And I remember when the president wrote to Biden, he said, as vice president, you are very instrumental to improving relations between India and your country. So he already has that, the world already has that perception of him, that he's a conformist, he's a friendly person who actually has the interest of other nationalities in mind. So all of that is very good, and I think Biden just got it right with that speech.
All right, Prof. It means that all of this will add up to efforts to stabilize the world in terms of peace. Is that what Biden-Harris government points to in all of this?
Yes, of course, that's what it points to. Because what was the name? Trump was very hard on foreign policies. You know, this idea of the powerful America, when Americans speak the police of the world and all that, you know, it was not diplomatic in his foreign policy. You know, it gave the impression that once America has said it,
it's a done deal.
It's a done deal, and every other nation must obey. Recently, we are aware of what happened with our Ngozi Iweala of World Trade Congress,
yeah.
You know, Director General. Trump was against it, even when it's so obvious that she won with a very wide margin. I think with the coming of Joe Biden, I think all that will change.
Okay.
We are hoping that, you know, she's going to get support of Joe Biden so that she will eventually be sworn in as the Director General of World Trade Organization. So, and it's going to favor Nigeria very well because it's going to be dealing with how nations trade one another, and she can do a lot of things that will favor Nigerians' interests in terms of world trade, international trade, and all that and all that. So I think Joe Biden's coming in will favor Africa more compared to the former President Trump.
All right, thank you very much. Christopher Ojekere, Programs Officer, Foundation for Good Governance and Social Change. And we also want to thank Professor Tony Jewelry from Novena University, giving us perspectives on the just concluded U.S. presidential election. But we know that in the days ahead, some things may happen, some may not happen, because the matter is already being contested in court. And we also have some recounting taking place in some states in the United States of America. How all of that will add up and determine the final outcomes of the election between now and January 20, midday, only time will tell. But if Mr. Trump insists on holding on to power, as they say, by midday, January 20, the office will simply leave him. And Chris has given us insight into how that will happen because of the structures in place, the workings of the institutions of governance in the United States of America, which makes everyone in that office realize that he is not a lord over the country. He doesn't own the country. The country is not willed to him. He's only given an opportunity to serve. And when you're not doing right, the things you're supposed to do, the people will rise up and kick you out through popular votes. And when you refuse to relinquish power, as it happened in 1801 with John Adams, who was the president of the United States of America, when he refused to relinquish power to Thomas Jefferson, the office simply left him because all the institutions of governance left him. And the later part of it was that officials of the White House simply took all his belongings and took them away and kicked him out of the office. And you also know that, from what I gathered, your stay in the U.S. in the White House as the president, you're on rent, and that rent is taken from your monthly salary as the president of the United States of America. These are things that obtained in other climes. We know about them. We don't practice them. We don't even want to go to the extent of paying rent, but just do the needful, make life more meaningful for the citizens. Today, we're talking about the economy, where a bag of rice is selling for 40-something thousand naira. We're talking about insecurity. I can't remember the last time I traveled on the Benin-Ekpoma road to see my mom in Ekpoma because of the challenge of insecurity. There are countless number of stories of activities that have taken place on that road, robbery, kidnappings, and what have you. And we're just looking like nothing is happening. The challenge of herdsmen attack, the challenge of banditry, kidnapping in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Benue, and all of the majority of the northern states is a big problem that is quite disturbing. And just recently, we heard that an American was kidnapped in Niger Republic and brought to Nigeria. America Navy SEAL Team 6 we're told, came into Nigeria, went to the exact spot where the young man was kept, picked the guy out, killed all the kidnappers, and took the guy to America. I mean, just take a look at that. So it means, in a sense, if we could just have some level of collaboration and cooperation, banditry would be a thing of the past. Boko Haram would be a thing of the past. Armed robbery and all of those vices will be a thing of the past.
That's why we have to be very sincere with what is happening in Nigeria. People keep wondering how a band of ragtag, stick-wielding, sword-carrying people would hold the Nigerian army to ransom for this number of years. The simple truth is that our government is not collaborating with those who can help them, who can assist them to deal with terrorism in the Northeast.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. It's TMI Monday with yours sincerely. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with the rest of the interviews on the program. Don't go away.